before we can talk about gifted education or special education, before we can talk about what's different, we need to talk about what's the same. Mainstream education, that term mainstream kind of refers to, well, like a river or a stream. And that means that if you can move along with the group, when some people go fast, you start to go fast. When some people go slow, you slow down. If you can go along with the stream, with the flow, then you're typically called mainstream. And mainstream education just means 30 kids in a room all doing the same thing. Now let's just be honest, some people do not thrive in that environment. This is why special education was created. There are two separate laws. In 1975, a law was passed called the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and it changed how special education works. In fact, it changed how schools work, and it changed how playgrounds work. It changed a lot of things in America, and mostly it changed it for the better. In 1988, another law was passed called the Jacob Javits Gifted and Talented Students Education Act. And both of these laws work together with mainstream education to create universal education. Now, the best teachers use a method called universal design. We design lessons for all levels of learners with supports built right in so that everyone can start it, try it, grow, and everyone can eventually excel. In fact, this universal design thing is actually a term from architecture, and architects use this term all the time to talk about, is the building designed for everyone to come into it? Because those aforementioned laws about education changed how recess equipment looks. Now that's combining the architects with the teachers with the things that didn't work too well. If you look at these two pictures here, you can see a playground on a school in the 1930s and the 1940s in the United States. These playgrounds are really fun and kind of dangerous. The idea here, though, is that these playgrounds have now changed to become more universal. So if we look at the play structure at the bottom, we see there's two different kinds of swings for kids who prefer a different way or have to have a different way. We see a rock climbing wall as a means to get up, but we also see a ladder as a means to get up. So you don't have to be able to grip a bar, you could grip a rock. And if I look on the side, there's even a smaller, different kind of ladder. So the whole point of recess is for everyone to play, and the whole point of education is for everyone to learn. One of the things that teachers use to help every learner is the icons of depth and complexity. These icons help students remember how to think deeper. So let's start with the ones you already know, and we can see how they apply to the new ones you're going to be learning. When you see this icon, then you know that your teacher wants you paying attention to the details. This other icon here is called language of the discipline. If I have students in my class who keep saying, oh, the good guy's going to come, oh, the bad guy's about to attack, then I'm going to take the language of the discipline icon and I'm going to say, let's try to push our language to the next level. Don't say good guy anymore. I want you to say protagonist. Don't say bad guy. I want you to say antagonist. We need to use those higher words in the right situation. Then we have the icon of patterns and the icon of rules. Sometimes patterns and rules are the same thing. The pattern for lining up to say the Pledge of Allegiance is almost like a rule. The rule is that we should all stand. And when you repeat a pattern enough, it kind of becomes a rule. Sometimes these icons stand alone, and sometimes these icons work together. But all of the icons help you push your thinking to the next level and remind you which part that you want to focus on. So let's now look at the new ones I want you focusing on. We have these three. The first one is called a paradox. The second one is called parallel. And this last one here is called contribution. A paradox is something that appears to be the opposite, but is in fact exactly the same. Here's a few examples of paradoxes. The phrase less is more is a paradox. And so when I think about that sentence, less is more, it sounds like the opposite. But let me give you a few examples and you know what I mean. Here is my BFF, Christina Aguilera. No, she's not really my BFF, but she's probably one of the most beautiful women on the planet. And she has an incredible singing voice, and she's just famous for her phenomenal voice. But sometimes she doesn't quite understand that less is more. In this picture here, she has more makeup, more curls, more hairspray, more concealer, more lipstick, more, and she in fact looks less beautiful. In this picture, she has less and she looks more beautiful. There's lots of other paradoxes, and let me let you read some examples. Here's a few paradoxes. Now this last one here is about history. In the American Revolution, the Patriots fought long and hard for freedom. Many people died in the American Revolution to get their freedom from a king. And as soon as the freedom was gained, they went around and bought slaves. So what freedom were they fighting for? They wanted freedom so desperately they were willing to die for it, but they didn't want to give it to their fellow human. The American Revolution has definitely a lot of paradoxes in it. When we talk about ancient civilizations in ancient Egypt, many pharaohs are depicted as muscular and trim, strong soldiers, brave, leading the people. But in reality, most of them ate honey and bread and alcohol all day long. They saw no need for vegetables. They saw no need to eat meat. It was pretty much honey, bread, and alcohol, which led to lots of health problems. So if you didn't know it, you'd read on the ancient pyramids, wow, these guys look great, strong leaders, when they really weren't. So how the ancient pharaohs were depicted is kind of a paradox. This icon here is called parallel. Two things that never meet but follow the same path are considered parallel. Here are a few parallels that you might know about. We have these two men. Both of them led their people to a better life. I could say lots of differences between these two men, but the parallel is that when their people needed freedom, both of these men led their people to freedom. And in fact, you don't have to have just two things to have a parallel. You could have three things. One of the most famous parallels throughout world history is between the Protestants and the Catholics. The Protestants and the Catholics have fought each other for much of recorded history. However, Protestants and Catholics believe in the same God, in the same Jesus, in the same Bible, and they live in pretty much the same countries. And you could say their beliefs, their lives, and their experiences all paralleled each other. But I have to show you a very sad photo. This is a photograph of a graveyard because there was a man and a woman who desperately loved each other. And they fell in love and they got married. But one was a Protestant and one was a Catholic. And when they died, neither church would let the other one be in their graveyard. So this picture shows the Protestant graveyard and the Catholic graveyard where the husband and wife are buried separately. But if you look, the gravestones are actually in parallel. There are very interesting parallels throughout history. There's very interesting parallels in science and very interesting parallels in the movie theaters. Grinch and Gru are pretty parallel when you think about it. And I'm sure you could think of a few reasons how the Grinch that stole Christmas and someone as despicable as Drew have a lot of things very much the same. So when we're thinking of universal education, you just have to think outside the box, or you have to think outside the river. So today we looked at two icons, paradoxes and parallels. And when you see this icon, I want you to think how the things are related. The next video, we're going to be talking about the icon of contribution, because sometimes the paradox contributes to our understanding. Those icons work together, but those icons work in isolation. But all the time, I'm pushing your thinking to a deeper level. No matter where you are in learning, I'm going to push you to the next level.